But we know that the Ravens have one of the most complete rosters, top to bottom, in the NFL. So, Schrags, are you confident that they can start strong with that schedule?
Remember, they were about a millimeter shy of potentially beating the Chiefs in week 1, and then they lost to a good team in week 2, and they bounced back. And by week 3 last year, they blew out the Bills on national TV, and we're like, all right, Derrick Henry's getting settled. I have no doubt that this Ravens team is going to come ready to play. I also have no doubt that they are going to be a better team out of the gates. There were a lot of new players getting adjusted. And even in that first game against the Chiefs last year, Justice Hill was the primary back for that first 3 quarters before they started getting Derrick Henry going. This year, no surprises. Derrick Henry's going to run the ball up everyone's gut in the first few weeks, and they got better on defense. I'm really interested to see what we get out of Jair Alexander this year. That is a player that a couple years ago we were talking about as potentially being the best defensive back in all of football. Played 4 games in 2 years, and suddenly he's looked at as this injury-prone red flag. They got him on 40 cents on the dollar about what he could be if he is healthy. And Jair's been talking big this offseason. So I look at this team. I think they really went all in with Jair. They went all in with DeAndre Hopkins. And they brought back so many key players. There is no excuse left. And right out of the gates, there should be no false starts.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to seeing their start. Here's the deal, though. Like every team that the Ravens show up on their schedule, they saying, dang, we got a hell of a start to the season because they are one of those teams like we looking at all of those teams that we have to play. Ultimately, it's going to boil down to the playoffs and how deep they can go and can they get to a Super Bowl and have an opportunity to win one. And I know we getting ahead of ourselves, but that's really how we look at the Baltimore Ravens through that prism. Will they get over the Patrick Mahomes hump like most teams in the AFC have to? Will they, the Cincinnati Bengals, we know their division, how good will Pittsburgh be as well? There's a lot of things that the Ravens can take week to week and not worry about the big picture, but we on TV. We work at ESPN for a certain reason. We in the preseason. We could talk about Super Bowl obviously being in the Ravens' future, and I think I don't think Lamar is going to feel good about having a good season or a good start. This team has put themselves in a position now where it's Super Bowl or bust. And I know everybody talks about that, but this team has been super close. AFC championships, deep playoff runs. Now it's time to get over the hump. The start will be great for positioning in the playoffs if they get it done, but nobody expects the Baltimore Ravens to be hurt coming out of week 6.
Mark is 100%. It's like being Phil Mickelson in the Tiger Woods era. Like, it's got to be exhausting for them because they've got the Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes constantly. And honestly, the Bills are a similar sentiment when it comes to them, and to a lesser degree, the Bengals. It's all about just getting to the postseason for their chance at the champ. Like, I remember being in Buffalo and watching them, like, with all due respect, they deserved it. It was a great win when they beat the Chiefs at home, and everybody acted like this was their moment. When it was a regular season, it didn't matter. It did not matter. And like, it's the same thing for the Ravens at this point. They need their chance at the champ in the postseason. And all due respect, everything they do in the regular season is nice. But they could go 17-0, and if they lose again in the postseason, none of it matters.
Here's the thing. Do you guys know, they have not won multiple games in the postseason. You have to go all the way back to the year they won the Super Bowl in 2012. So just think about that. Wow. Yeah. And they're going to have a rookie kicker, too. Don't forget that. All right, we're just getting started on Knicks. He improved drastically throughout the season. In his first 7 starts, he had just a 45 total QBR, 6th lowest in the NFL, threw as many interceptions as touchdowns. Come on, the guy was a rookie, right? In his last 10 starts, that QBR jumped 21 points, plus his yards per attempt and completion percentage increased dramatically. He threw for 24 touchdowns over his last 10 starts, 4th most during that span. Seth Wickersham with more on how Sean Payton found his quarterback.
On a March morning in 2024, Sean Payton held a file folder and asked me, "Do you promise with every shred of your integrity that you won't discuss this with anyone?" I said yes. He opened the folder. Inside were the names of the top quarterbacks in the draft, from Caleb Williams to J.J. McCarthy, and a series of proprietary measurements. Payton had created a new formula, a series of advanced analytics, in search of answers to maybe the hardest and most mysterious question in professional sports. which great college quarterbacks have what it takes to become great NFL quarterbacks? And how do you know? NFL teams have thrown hundreds of millions of dollars at the question over the years, and the hit rate has been horrible.
Where the hell was Leaf throwing that one?
Since 2000, 75 quarterbacks have been drafted in the first round. At least 37 failed. When he returned to the league as head coach of the Denver Broncos in 2023, Peyton needed to find his next Drew Brees. He began with an idea he had first developed when he scouted and missed out on Patrick Mahomes in 2017. For Peyton, the key was not to study a quarterback's successes, but to analyze his failures. He felt that quarterbacks with high rates of sacks and turnovers often panicked. So he looked at the rate of negative plays against the quarterback's total dropbacks. What percentage of the time did his plays result in a sack, fumble, or interception? It was a failure index of sorts. For example, Mahomes' failure index was just 8.1%. Peyton famously missed out on Mahomes in the draft, but he believed he had the right approach. And in 2024, when he was in the market for a franchise quarterback, he applied it to the crop of top candidates, from Caleb Williams, whose high sack numbers gave him a 17.5% score, to Drake May and J.J. McCarthy, whose ball security approaches resulted in relatively low scores of 10.5 and 7.8%. And then Peyton ran numbers on Oregon's Bo Nix. In 878 dropbacks during his collegiate career, Nix was sacked only 10 times. He never fumbled, not once. He threw just 10 interceptions. He completed nearly 75% of his passes. His failure index was a paltry 2.3%. Nix was better than everyone, and it wasn't close. Peyton's formula helped narrow his choices. When he got to know Nix and learned about his character, he was sold. Nobody had a better rookie year than Jayden Daniels, but Nix started all 17 games for Denver, accounted for 33 total touchdowns, and helped the Broncos to their first playoff berth in almost a decade.
Gold loads it up. He's got it. A receiver there. Touchdown, Denver.
For the rest of his coaching career, Peyton has his quarterback.
Seth Wickersham is with us now. That is so interesting. Wouldn't all of the Italian evaluators love to have some tried and true formula and hit better than 50% on those first round quarterbacks? How well does this system work for Peyton?
Well, I think it worked pretty well this time. That's the mystery, right? We never quite know. Is it the guy with the ball in his hands, or is it the formula that led it to him? But I think that what makes this so interesting is that he cracked the code in his own way of the hardest metric that all of the analytics people and every GM around the league wants to know, which is like, how can you predict processing speed when you decide you want to throw the ball to delivering it? And the difference between college and the NFL is like half of a second. But no one can figure out a way to quantify how to measure that. And so what he did, I think, most coaches look at a player and they say, here are the things he does wrong and this is what I want to fix. Peyton didn't say that at all, and instead he just looked at hard results. And that's what led him to Nix, because Nix's results when it came to negative plays like sacks and turnovers, fumbles, interceptions, were so low that he trusted that he was seeing the field clearly and reacting quickly.
And the great thing about Nix is he had such a large body of work to evaluate, so Peyton wasn't guessing and saying, oh, maybe, here's the ceiling for this guy. It's really interesting because we do know, Peter, that the Broncos have maybe the best defense in the NFL. It's great, and that's awesome for Nix. What about the other side of the ball? Have they done enough to help him build off of last year?
Well, I'd first say what a testament to Seth and what a reporter that he is, and that Sean Payton's even willing to share that contents of the manila folder with him. And when you unveil that, it can't just be the quarterback. You have to build around him as well. And I remember being on the phone with Peyton the night before the draft last year, and he probably called me 3 different times asking the same question, if the Raiders loved Penix. Do the Raiders love Penix? If Penix, are the Raiders going to trade up to get Penix? He was so concerned about the Raiders loving Penix that they might not love Penix and might love Bo Nix, and then this whole entire process and rating system would be out the window if the Raiders jumped him. He wasn't going to let it happen again. To your point, Seth, he wanted Mahomes. They were all ready to draft Mahomes. Andy Reid went and got him. So now they put the parts around him. look at the running backs room, I think it's huge. When he was in New Orleans, Sean always had this variety of running backs, whether it be a combination of Pierre Thomas and Darren Sproles and Reggie Bush, and eventually Alvin Kamara. They always had all these guys, and then soon enough, Taysom Hill was playing that. In Denver, they're building a stable of running backs, and all the fantasy folks will tell you Harvey's the guy, and he will be, but they still really like Jaleel McLaughlin. They still are really excited about getting J.K. Dobbins, and they still like the kid Estime that they got from Notre Dame last year. So that's going to be key because Sean Payton has not always been a passing guy. We know that. And it's always been about Breeze. But that stable of running backs is almost as important in New Orleans as it was the passing game. And they are very high on what they have in the running backs room this year as well.
Yeah, they traded up to get Knicks's college teammate, Troy Franklin, as well. So this is just one part of your new book, and I'm with Schrags. I mean, kudos to get Sean Payton to like peel back the coaching onion at all is unbelievable. What else can we expect? Because I know you're going to have some more great revelations for us coming up.
What was funny, and I didn't tell a soul about that. I didn't even tell my wife. Nobody knew that he had showed me that. I didn't talk to a single person about it, and it all worked out. He was a happy guy after the draft. I think I'm going to be here every week. We're going to talk about a new element of the book, and I hopefully have some surprises for people.
Yeah, well, hopefully you got more people to spill some more secrets, as only you can, Seth Wickersham. Also, we want to tell people this book is unbelievable. It's called American Kings, a biography of the quarterback. It is available for pre-order now wherever books are sold. We have some breaking news now into NFL Live from Adam Schefter, and this is big. The NFL has suspended Vikings wide receiver Jordan Addison for the first 3 games of the 2025 regular season for violating the league's substances abuse policy. He will now miss games at Chicago, against the Falcons, against the Bengals. Again, tough news for that team, and especially J.J. McCarthy, his first year. Breaking news on NFL Live. The NFL has suspended Vikings wide receiver Jordan Addison for the first 3 games of the 2025 regular season. For the details now, we go to Jeff Darlington. JD, what more can you tell us?
Well, Hannah, this is a 3-game suspension that is for substance abuse, but this is actually something that requires a little more context. Addison was arrested for DUI last year. He pleaded down to a lesser charge. So this is related to that. The wording obviously is being used that it's the substance abuse situation. The suspension is for that, but this is all related to that DUI. So this then will go away in terms of the punishment from the NFL. This is their final punishment as a result of that situation. So again, a 3-game suspension for the Vikings' #2 wide receiver. Obviously very impactful considering J.J. McCarthy, a quarterback, is trying to establish himself as the franchise guy.
Right, those first 3 games would be at the Bears, the Falcons, and the Bengals.